Hello, and welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where you can find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self love, self care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Fatima Bey, who is a Mindshift coach and the host of the Mindshift Power Podcast. She uses her inspirational passion and witty personality to bring together teens and the adults who work with them with raw, honest, and meaningful conversation. This is an amazing collaboration happened because of the Women in Podcasting community, where Jennifer Hensel has created a great place where women support one another. Now, let's welcome Fatima to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
What is life with me? Not boring.
I can
I
tell.
am I'm always full of energy. I am, a very deep and serious person. But at the same time, I'm a giant kid. I'm a giant goofball. So people who know me know that I'm really just crazy in a fun, good way. But I'm also very deep and serious when it needs to be, and both personalities will come out, in different situations. But life with me is very busy. First, I'm actually a dual entrepreneur. So what that means is I have two businesses. The first business, which I started way back in 2010, is I'm a professional seamstress, dressmaker, and designer. I specialize in wedding gowns. So I make
Nice.
and design wedding gowns. I've won national and international awards for it, several, which is I'm proud to say. I don't say it with arrogance. I say it with a lot of pride because I work my ass off. Can I say ass on here?
Yeah, you're right.
I forgot to ask you that. Um, I worked my behind off to be able to say those things. So I do that. And then I started the Mindshifter just a couple of years ago. I have been a Mindshift coach, honestly, unofficially, all my life, because
Yeah.
people naturally gravitate to me for advice. People naturally gravitate to me to confide in me about some pretty deep, serious things, some pretty vulnerable things, really. And I'm fine with that. I've always been that person. And I find myself giving people words of wisdom, seeing situations, angles, I would say, of a situation that, or perspectives that other people don't. And, after a while, I learned that that's actually a gift. And, something I know is that none of our gifts are for us.
Mm.
Not a single one of us are gifted to entertain ourselves. All of our gifts are there for everyone else. And everything that we're enjoying in life is because of someone else's gift. And so, recognizing that and understanding my purpose, my specific purpose. I don't mean general, yay, I'm here to make everybody happy. That's not your purpose. My purpose is to make a difference in the world, and especially with youth. I don't only work with youth because a lot of adults are gravitate towards me too, but my biggest passion is with youth. And I know that my purpose is to make a difference for them. And by making a difference for the next generation, I'm making a difference in the world, because
And,
the difference I make in the youth will go on and,
mhm.
will go on for decades. And so I think it's important to sow my seeds where they're going to grow the most. And that's in our youth.
I love that, and that's why my heart was attached to yours because
I
I
can see
have a
it.
soft spot for teenagers just because I was a hardcore teenager that my
Hmm.
mom didn't understand.
Hmm.
So she pretty much gave me away in a sense just to my
Hmm.
biological father, and then he didn't know what to do with a teenager because he was like,
Wow.
"Hey, here's your daughter. She's 15 now. Do your thing." So anyways, but yeah, how did your mission started? And yeah, tell us more about your mission.
Well, it started, as far as being the mind shifter. That's a different answer than the podcast, but I'll tell you both. As far as being the mind shifter, that really started as a push from my sister. My sister is Monica Bay, the healer in heels. If you Google her, she's a big deal. She has her own TV network.
Oh,
And
that's
she's a
awesome.
black woman in America with her own TV network. Ain't but a few of them. Her, Oprah, and just like one or two others
Yeah.
that I could find when I researched them. So, she, she's not new to podcasting and public speaking and you know networking and et cetera, et cetera. She knows me. She knows how strong I am and my passions, et cetera, and also knows my giftings. And she's like, you really need to be, you need to officially become a coach. And I just hadn't really considered it until she pushed me. And once she pushed me, I'm like, yeah, I've been holding back these gifts and I need to just go forward and help more people with them. So I always knew I wanted to do that one day. I just wasn't sure how. But she pushed me with the how, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And so recently, I'll tell you this. There was a group that I started in Amsterdam, New York, at at Creative Connection Clubhouse. They are a community center, a really, really, really good community center in Amsterdam. And I say that because there's a lot of community centers in the country, and not all of them are actually connected to their community. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this one actually is. And so I started doing a girls group there as the Mindshifter called Blossoms. And it was just simply a group for teenage girls to come and talk, have a place where they could talk, where they could be honest, where nobody's going to politically correct them. They can just speak. And then, but not just sit there and complain, but also come up with their own solutions. Because you're not going to complain to me for an hour
Mm-hmm.
and just leave it there. No, we're going to come up with solutions too. The complaining is necessary, the
Yeah.
talk is necessary, but being solution oriented is also necessary. So I started doing that, and then I met a girl in that group. She was in the very first group, the very first session of that group, and then she just stuck with the group, and then she stuck with me. Um, she is going to be on my next episode this coming Tuesday, and talk. She's going to talk about that journey. But working with her, and I, ended up coaching her. That wasn't the intention, but I ended up coaching her, and within a few months, she went from low self esteem to and no value in herself and no vision for her future, to now she's looking for scholarships for college. She's going to be a lawyer. She knows exactly what kind of lawyer she's going to be. She's very confident now. She knows exactly who she is. And if other people say otherwise, she's like, oh well, they're wrong. She doesn't
Yeah.
take it. But being able to do that for her made me recognize that I want to be able to do that for more girls like her, on a bigger scale. And then boys too, if they're willing. Boys, you have to operate with boys a little bit different than girls. So that's why I say girls,
Yeah.
because that's just where my specialty is. Although I love young men. Um, but I recognize that, and then I recognize that because of that group, I recognize there needs to be a space where teenagers of all backgrounds, I don't care where, rich, poor, white, black, blah, 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 all backgrounds, there needs to be a space where they can actually have real, honest conversation without the bullshit of extreme political correctness, because that's the society they're growing up in right now. And without real, raw, honest conversation, there's absolutely no solutions that can come. That is 100% true in any part of life, not just with teenagers. You cannot come up with solutions if you don't have honest conversation first. And that honest conversation may look different for different people in different places in different settings. But the honest communication has to happen first. Well, if you're constantly being told to focus on what you can't say instead of what you can, that's a problem. And we have a generation right now that is growing up that doesn't know how to freaking have a conversation that's productive.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to have a conversation that's safe, but not one that's actually productive. And that's a problem for this whole country, because they're the ones who are going to be running this place in a few years. And if they can't have productive conversations now, what the hell is it going to look like in a few years?
Yeah.
So
It's scary though.
really, and I wanted to create a space where they could actually talk, and a lot of it is receiving encouragement, because something I do notice, and you can research it on Google and find that facts and figures will agree. But even without looking at facts and figures, I can just see around me. Our teenagers, this generation, are growing up more lonely than any other generation
Mhm.
that's ever been here, honestly. Even back before electricity, I'm sure those kids were not as lonely as they are now, because there was a family to focus on. But now we're focused on self and self and self all the time. And there's nothing wrong with focusing on self if you do it with balance, but we don't. As a culture, that's not what we teach anyway. There's people who do, but as a culture, we're taught um, to be self-centered, and I mean, as an American culture specifically, we're taught to be extremely self-centered. It's very out of balance and it's very bad. It produces a lot of bad things. Um, and our generation is feeling very lonely. You know, our younger generation, they're all feeling very lonely. They have all these digital connections, but not a whole lot of human connections. And it really is true that a lot of these teenagers, and I go and I teach at high schools. I speak and like do workshops and such at high schools. And so I work a lot with high school students and I see high school students all the time. And it really is true that they don't know how to talk to each other sometimes. It also depends on the household they grew up in, of course, because some people do. But generally speaking, as a generation, they don't know how to talk to each other.
Nope.
And as adults, we just kind of don't think it's as big of a deal as it is, but it's a really big deal, because if they don't know how to talk to each other, how are they going to produce anything?
Mhm.
Like, what are they going to produce? And it's not that they're incapable of producing, they're being taught to be robots instead of productive. I'll say that again. Our generation is being taught to be robots instead of being productive. That's a problem. And I want to combat that problem. I want to do something about it. You know, I can't solve every problem in the world, but I can solve something.
Yeah.
And so I'm using my podcast to do that. We can all do something from where we are. And where I am is I have a mouth, I have an attitude, and I have a strong personality. So I'm taking all those three things
I
and
love
strong
it.
determination
I'm
and
here
and
for
and
it.
putting them together in a way, you know, so that we can I can help the world by helping the next generation that's going to run
Yeah, I love it. And that was a great segue to how the podcast started.
it. The podcast is I'm very passionate about it. Anybody who has talked to me about it is like, I was like, and I even say to them, I'm like, you can hear my passion, right? They're like, yeah. Yeah, I'm very passionate about it. And it's because I love children. I have all my entire life. I used to teach Sunday school. I used to work at Job Corps. I ran the dorm. Sometimes I ran the whole center. Sometimes um, there's a there's a lot of different capacities. I've done youth groups. I've been youth coordinator. There's a lot of different capacities in which I have worked with youth. It's because I love youth, and they're so important to me. And I'm not going to talk about it as much, but one of the things that I'm also known for by people that know me is I'm very, very, very passionate about human trafficking. Why? Because I'm passionate about youth, and it's the number one, or it might be number two, number one and number two. They switch up between hunger and trafficking for issues among young women and children in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about that. I have raised money for that. I donate to an organization that helps with that. Um, for the same reason, I care about youth. So this podcast started because I care about youth, and I care about the future, and I see the crap that adults that we have left them. We've left them with a bowl of shit, and then expect them to make a cake with it.
Mhm.
Like that's how I feel
Yeah.
that we have in this country. I can only talk about America because that's where I am. In different parts of the world, it's different, but in America, that's where we are. And so I want to do something to really just be able to help them. And another big part of it, as I stated earlier, is a lot of youth are feeling lonely and they really think that their issues are just theirs alone. And they're not. You know, they think that they're weird and they're not. You know, they think they're stupid and they're not, because they don't fit into this stupid little box that our society says you're supposed to fit in. They think that there's something wrong with them. And 90% of the time, there isn't. Sometimes, yeah, they're right, there is something wrong. But most of the time, there isn't. And I want to be able to tell them that, you know, that you're not weird. You are different than your peers, and you're designed that way. Go with what you're designed to do, not with the box we try to put you in. And so that's another objective of my show as well.
I love it. So is it like just you or do you bring guests?
Oh, I guess. I sometimes it will be just me, but very rarely. I don't want people to just hear my voice all the time because I'm sorry. I don't care how much you might love me. That'll get annoying after a while. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean?
I get the
It's you
feeling.
know what I mean. So I will have guests most of the time. And at least 60% of the time, my guests will be teenagers. There will be a lot of episodes where I have teenagers and adults discussing things.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. I gotta
yes,
check it out.
yeah, you do. Especially this coming Tuesday is the young girl that I told you about.
Well, this is gonna
But
be posted in
oh, I
November,
forgot. Yeah,
so it's gonna be already live.
it'll be yeah. So you want to listen to one about real estate, and then the one about what did I title it? Real change episode. Yeah, the name of the episode is Real Change.
Okay.
So you want to listen to her because she's the one that I've coached, and she's just in a matter of months become a completely different person in a good way, and has a strong future ahead of her, and has a plan to maintain that strong future, not just thinking about it and hoping for it, but a plan.
Mhm.
And then there's so some of the episodes are all a little bit different. Some episodes have just me and an adult talking. Some are just me and a youth talking. Some are, I'm the host and I stay in the background, and you know, the adult who's in a particular position will have a discussion with a youth, and they can ask all the questions they want. And again, on my show, there's I do not bow down to political correctness, and this is something I say to every adult and every youth on my show. You can say whatever you want as long as you're not rude and obnoxious. That's the only thing I ask. If you
Mhm.
feel, I don't care if it's politically correct or not. If you feel like someone's retarded, then say they're retarded. Yes, it's politically incorrect to say that, but I want you to be free to say that. Now, most people I know actually don't use that word, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying they're free to say whatever they want as long as it's real and true.
I love it. And with your coaching, do you do a one-on-one or do you do a group setting? What's
I do both. This coming fall, I will start doing virtual group settings because I've done group settings, but not virtually. So this fall they will be on my website. So I'm assuming the website will be on your
show notes?
the show notes. So if you go to my website, everything I have coming up will be on my events page. But I do one-on-one coaching, and that's also on my website. They can contact me to find out what kind of coaching they need. Um, what I do that's different than other coaches, I don't have uh, preset packages rigidly. So I do have categories that I focus on, but I don't have preset packages like this much for that 5 weeks, this one for this week's, because I've learned that that doesn't work for everyone, and I want to work for everyone that I work with. So for me, I set up the packages according to what their needs are and the subjects that I focus on that I can help them with. Um, that we can find a way to, because maybe I focus on, 3 or 4 different things, and maybe you need 2 of those. So this one package is not going to be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just put them together, and let's go, instead of 6 weeks, let's go 10 weeks or 10 months,
Yeah.
whatever you need. Um, and I work with people because I believe in customizing what I do. Just like when I do wedding gowns, I customize what I do with those too. Um, I,
I love it.
I think it's important. Cookie cutter, and I got to say this, cookie cutter mentality, cookie cutterness works for cookies. It doesn't work for humans.
Yeah.
So I don't take a cookie cutter approach in anything that I do. But if people talk to me and they want specifics, I'll give them specifics in that conversation. But I don't like do, a 5 week package, a 6 weeks package, a 6 month package. I find that that's not as useful for people, because a lot of people don't fit into the categories we want them to. And I believe in meeting people where they are. So I meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. That might be 10 weeks. It might be 10 months. It depends on how far you want to go and where you are.
Yeah. I love that. Is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know about you or your mission?
Yes. So I'm also a business with a cause. I donate a portion of all of my proceeds to an organization called Kinship United, and I absolutely love them. I've been donating. I've been donating to them since I started my Abishai, my sewing business in 2010. So a long time now. And what they do is they help orphans um, and human trafficking victims. Their focus is not human trafficking, but they do tend to focus on areas where children are targeted for human trafficking. So that's why I include that when I describe it. So I love them though, because they help the whole child. So they'll take them out of a bad situation. They'll take them off the streets where they're usually picked up and kidnapped by traffickers. And then they will give them food and shelter. That's just where they begin. They're a Christian organization, so they help them spiritually. They give them counseling. They help them with education. They even help them with career choices and advancement in some areas. Now that looks different in all the different countries that they're in, but they really help. So anyway, I'm a business with a cause. Any business that I own, and I mean any business I own, have owned, or will own, that's a part of my business model, is that I donate a portion to help children around the world, and I always will. What's the point of having status, money, and anything else if you don't do something with it? Yeah, you could buy
Yeah.
fancy cars and have everybody like you, yay, put you on a pedestal, blah blah blah. But then what else? So what? Like what?
Yeah.
So that's my business model. So as I grow, so do my donations. And that's really how I keep it. The other thing that I want people to know is that I mentioned that I coach, but I didn't say what my focuses are. So my focuses are to help people to find their individual purpose, which I did with that young girl, the Real Change episode you'll hear about. Help people to find their individual purpose. Um, to once you find your purpose, turn that purpose into a business or a career. Now,
Mm.
I'm big on entrepreneurship, but everybody's not going to be an entrepreneur, and I know that. But you still can take your gifts and your purpose and make money with them while you're enjoying being fulfilled. Why in the world are you just working a job to pay bills? That's why so many people are just miserable, because they're doing
Yeah.
that. We got to pay bills and we need money, but you also need to feel fulfilled. And why not have it in all in one package? So I do that. And then helping people to find balance. Balance is a huge subject of mine. Um, and I don't mean in the way that people normally teach it. Balance is not 50-50. Balance is something that works. Everything in life that works has balance, and everything that doesn't
Mm.
is because something's out of balance. Most
Yep.
people don't think about it that way, but it's true. And I help people to find their balance in an area of their life where they're going too far. So people that are what I call mental extremists, they go way off the deep end, in one area. Those are people who need balance. Something that needs balance right now, for example, in our society is politics.
Yeah.
Biggest freaking example ever. It's like a lot of people, if they're a Democrat, they're way off the deep end, airheaded, and everything's free, including the air in my head. And then you have the other extremists on the Republican side who are just like, we're not racist, we just hate everybody who's not like us. um you know and you have these extremities in both parties that have taken them over, when in fact there are a lot of people in both parties who are not extremists like that, but they're out of balance. They're way off the deep end, and people think that because if you're not at zero, you have to be 100.
Mhm.
No, there are 99 freaking numbers in between. Maybe you should be at 67 or 42.3. It's like people
Yeah.
want to go from one extreme to another because they don't understand balance. So I help people to understand balance, first of all, and then understand how they can find balance in their personal life, because most of us are imbalanced in our lives in different places in different ways. And sometimes it's just not a matter of, okay, you talk too much, for example. That doesn't mean that you should shut up. It means that you need to learn when to talk too much. And
Oh
you need
my
to
God,
learn
that's a hard one
when.
for me. I feel
Girl,
attacked
me
on
too.
that one.
I talk a lot, as you can tell. I'm a chatty Cathy, as they say. I'm very friendly. I'm very outgoing. I talk a lot. Um, that's my personality. But when people don't understand that that's a natural part of who you are, and they're not like that, they want you to shut up. you don't need to shut up. You just need to learn when it's appropriate to use your gift. There's a difference. And that's part of the balances that I teach people how to do.
I love that. Any advice for any quick mind shift?
I'm pretty sure I just did some mind shifting during this interview, but because I can't help it, I do it all the time. But number one, if you really want your mind to be shifted, go to my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's the Mindshifter.
Nice.
I'll send that to you as well. Um, it's the Mindshifter, and I have over 70 videos on there. And a lot of them are, I used to be on the radio, local radio, and I had my Mindshifter segment, and I would just give advice and just talk about things of life that we all deal with, and can, a lot of people can relate to. And there's a lot of good lessons on there. So I would suggest that you go to um, my YouTube channel to see what I have to say, and obviously subscribe to my podcast. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah, where can
um,
my listeners find
even
you
though
on
it's
website
for,
on
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, the to start giving the links of website, podcast, anything that you want to promo.
Okay. Um, for the podcast, if you go to Fatima Bey, FATIMABEY.com/podcast. Everything you need to know about the show is on that page, all the links related to. So if you have any topics that you think should be talked about, you can submit them right on that page. If you have any comments about the podcast, you can submit them right on that page. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can click on a little button on that page, and go right to a form to fill out that puts you in front of my face. There's also my website, fatimabey.com, all of my coaching information. I also go to high schools and do workshops if anybody's interested in me doing those. I have a few workshops coming up this fall about that focuses on helping teens to find their careers. Something I've noticed is that schools are usually very good at giving them tools, but not always so good at preparing them for those tools.
Yeah.
That's where I come in and help to prepare the teens for the tools that the schools are already giving them, so that when they're making those career choices, which are really pivotal points in their lives, they're going to college, they're going to a gap year program, they're going to a trade school, they're going right into an entrepreneurship, whatever that teen is doing, that decision needs to be made from the heart, not just from information. And schools are very good at giving them information and giving them tools, but not always making sure they're prepared to make the right decision. I come in and do that because I don't work for the school. So I can come in and say what I want and be honest and be real. Well, say what I want within reason. I don't do anything crazy, but well, sometimes people take things to extreme. So that's why I feel the need to balance that out when I say it. So I go in, and because I'm not on the restrictions that the teachers are on and that the staff is on, I can come in and be real and honest with the students and be productive with them, so that when the teacher and staff and counselors and those who work very hard at schools are able to, give them the tools, and show them what websites to go to, or just all these different tools that they give them. Those tools are far more useful because now you have a student who's prepared to use them properly. Mm-hmm. And the problem is a lot of them are giving these students tools who are not prepared to use them properly because they still have no clue what they want to do. And it doesn't mean that they're going to doesn't mean that they're going to be perfectly on point after talking to me, but I could at least give them the guidance on how to find that point.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on my show.
Oh, I forgot to say IG. I'm Fatima.Bey_, I believe.
I will have all the links in the show notes. I will make sure I have your YouTube channel, your podcast, and your website. It will all be on the show notes, I promise.
Oh, and one more thing. Yes. Even though the podcast is for teens, I'm finding that a lot of adults are going to get something out of it too. Oh, even though this discussion is for teens, there's a whole lot of adults who are just grown up teens.
There's some, that they're not like some that are not self-aware. So like when they hear something talking to a kid, you're like, Oh man, I wish somebody would have talked to me like that,
Yes. Oh my
so
God.
they
So
can
yes,
relate and stuff like that because there's a lot of I'm one of them. I'm like I'm working on my healing. It's one day at a time,
it
and
is.
that's why I love taking care of the youth, kids and teenagers, but teenagers have like a soft spot because once again, I was a hard teenager that was misunderstood, and I wish I just had the tools and resources to be able to express myself on all the big emotions that you're feeling, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I have somebody that has that passion as well, it's like, yes, girl, do your thing. Your world needs, the world needs you. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode. You can find my show in all major podcast platforms as well as my YouTube channel. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow on your favorite podcast app. You can leave a review to help others find the show. It sure helps and it's truly appreciated. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye bye.